Hello and welcome to another episode of the Freelancers Tea Break. Now, I've been doing this podcast for 8 or 9 years? And I recently discovered I've been using the wrong settings on Audacity for several of those years. So hopefully this should be a little bit louder. Joe, who works with me a lot in the business, mentioned that it was a little bit quiet sometimes. And I think I figured out why. Actually, I think I figured out 2 or 3 things. I spent a lot of time on YouTube this week looking at tutorials and things like that. So hopefully the audio quality on this will be a little bit better for you. If the sound isn't great though, please do let me know, because I very much take an experimental approach to everything in business. So I'm constantly learning on the go, very much progress, not perfection. So there's always room for improvement, and I'd love your feedback on that. So this week I want to talk about Mental Health Month. This is going to be a collaborative one, a bit like we tried last week, or last month rather. And I use a tool called SpeakPipe. I'm sharing it just in case you're a podcaster and you find it useful, where I can get other freelancers to share their kind of snippets of their thoughts on things, because I think it's really interesting to shake it up a little bit and not just hear me. And to be honest, you've heard a lot about my mental health in the last year with my ADHD diagnosis, and I think I've touched on my anxiety a bit in the past as well. I'm an oversharer. I do that because I want, if it means that one person feels less alone hearing that, I'm more than happy to overshare. And I just, part of my ADHD is that I just don't have the ability to filter too much. But I think it's useful to hear from other people as well. This month I asked people, what's one thing you do to support your mental health as a freelancer? I know this is going to be different for everyone, so I thought it might be really useful. So we're going to dive in first with Sally Farrant, who is the pricing queen. She's actually been on the podcast before. She is brilliant. And she also, by the way, go have a look on her website, because she's got some great stuff about hitting the VAT threshold and things like that as well. Right, let's pass over to Sally.
Hi Emma, it's Sally, the pricing queen, and I wanted to say that the most important thing that I have found for my mental health in my business is having really, really clear boundaries. So things like having Fridays off, making sure I don't work in the evenings, and just being really clear what my availability is like, and actually when I'll get back to clients and all of that sort of thing, so that I'm really clear with both them and myself about what I'm available for and what I'm not available for. You know, if I'm going to be available in the holidays, then great. But if I'm not, I need to make sure that I'm upfront with my clients and give them lots of notice. But yeah, so having boundaries, really, really important, and has meant that I can balance things much better in my work and life.
Yep, love all this. And I also wanted to add that terms and conditions are a really great way for you to implement these boundaries from the start with a client without it feeling awkward. You can just send them your terms and conditions saying, these are the hours I work, the days I work, turnaround, payment expectations. But you can also have in there things like what happens if you'll be unwell or they're unwell, or information isn't provided, or there's lots of different things that you can include in your terms and conditions. It doesn't have to be a really fussy document. It can just be an email with your basic terms and conditions. There is a template on the freelancelifestyle.co.uk website with a free template for terms and conditions. But I really, really think boundaries are so important. And also, it's not a one-off thing. You don't send the terms and conditions or set the boundaries and forget about them. Sometimes you do need to keep reinforcing it, readjust them as time goes on. Right. Oh, it's just started torrential raining, but I don't have a lot of time to record this week, so we're going to just go with it. If you can hear it in the background, just imagine it's like a relaxing rainfall type thing. Right, next I've got Angela Lyons, and Angela does a lot of the graphic design for Freelancer magazine, which I really recommend you have a look at. But I believe she's also a finalist for Digital Women's Freelancer of the Year. So definitely one to listen to here.
Hi Emma, this is Anne Share. I saw your newsletter and the podcast, I thought it was great, but one thing that I do for my mental health is that I have to leave the house because I do work here all day. I have my little room in my house, I might call my office. But before I start the day, I have to go for a walk or go to the gym. I mainly go to the gym, to be honest. Do work out there for either 30 minutes, 45 minutes or an hour if I get enough time. I just like to put my headphones on and zone out, and that sets me up for the day, and it's good for your health. And you also meet a few other people there. There's other people there that are early in the morning. I used to go at 6 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes I do, but I'd definitely be there between 7 and 8 in the morning, 7 and 9. But yeah, that's one thing I have to do in the morning, is just go for some exercise. That supports me mentally.
Yep, great one. I think it's really easy, especially this time of year, to go into hibernation mode. But even if you're an introvert, and I am very much a card-carrying introvert, it's still important to get out there and speak to other people, or just that whole process of being outside the house. I do the school run a couple of times a day, and sometimes it's just really nice to be able to leave the house and then come back in and almost walk into the house in work mode. And that doesn't have to be limited to like those who have school runs or anything like that. It can be you go for a morning walk, go work in a coffee shop or things like that, or like Angela said, go to the gym, things like that. That can be really, really helpful. And when you feel like you're in a funk, I cannot recommend more connecting with other people, whether it's a networking event, or like just speaking to another local freelancer saying, do you want to go for a coffee and cake? It's really, really important. Even if you are an introvert, it's still really important to connect with others. Working for yourself does not have to mean being alone. So next up we've got Nicola Thale. She does French to English translation, and I think she's got a really interesting one here, and I'll share a tip that might help if you really struggle to focus on some of the things that she mentions.
Hi Emma, my name is Nicola Thale and I'm a French to English translator and interpreter based in Melbourne, Australia. To look after my mental health as a freelancer, I like to meditate for 10 minutes in the morning or at some point during the day when my 4-year-old is busy. And I also like to do 15 minutes of yoga, and I take ashwagandha to support my mental health physiologically. And I like to get outside in the garden too. That really helps. Take care. Bye.
So, meditation and movement are both things that I try and do a bit more in my life, but I'm not very good at making myself do them. So I use flown sessions quite a lot. Flown as in flying. They have like a 20-minute session in the mornings, 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. And you can go in and do 20 minutes, and it's meditation, journaling, and intention setting. So they spin you off into little groups. So that's a really good way if you're struggling to commit to that or finding time. If you book that in your diary, it's really worthwhile doing, because it does set you up for the day really nicely. But equally, sometimes I will do a little meditation during lunchtime, like while I'm waiting for my food to cook or something like that. If I lie down and do meditation, I'll 100% go to sleep. So I've now started to learn that I really need to be doing meditations that are more active. If you are struggling to find ways to do meditation, if it doesn't work for you, there are plenty of other ways to do it. Sometimes I will just put some lo-fi music on and zone out to that. I think that's just as good sometimes. You don't necessarily have to do it in the way that people are always saying that you need to do it. Also, a massive fan of what do they call it now? 8G music or 16G music. I'll find some links to put in the comments. But essentially, for someone who's neurodivergent, it works really well. It's a way of listening to music, and you have your headphones on, and the music plays into your right ear and then your left ear, and it kind of almost feels like it's going around your head. It makes me zone out completely. So that might be worth a try if meditation doesn't work for you. And also, I keep hearing really good things about the supplement she mentioned, and I can't pronounce. So I'm going to have to go away and have a look at that. Next up is Georgina, who actually joined us in the last one that we did at this. And she's quite shy about saying this, but I'll share this for her. She's up as a finalist in 2 awards for freelancers at the moment. So we've got all our fingers crossed for her. She's in the Freelance Business Lounge as well, and she's been an absolute ray of sunshine. So let's see what she says.
One thing I do to make sure I'm looking after my mental health as a freelancer is getting enough rest. Sometimes that means not following that traditional 9 to 5 and working in that bubble that we're used to when we come from an employed background. But that might mean staying in bed for an extra 10 minutes just to get some rest, watching TV, turning my brain off, sometimes having a nap in the middle of the day, or just having a lie down, making sure I prioritize that time so that I'm able to rest, recuperate, and then finding productive ways for rest for you, whether that's finding good hobbies like walking the dog, clearing your mind. Wild swimming for me is a massive one. Talking with my friends. Rest doesn't just come as sleep. So get your early nights, get your naps in, get your lie-ins in as much as you can, and make sure you are looking after yourself, because it is so important to be able to function properly if you're struggling with your mental health. So definitely take rest, and that's one thing that I do.
I loved what Georgina said here, actually, because she touched on how it's not just about sleeping. And definitely sleep was my go-to to relax or de-stress, and I don't think I even realised it. It has changed since I've gone on ADHD meds, because I am no longer constantly overwhelmed by my own brain, so I actually have energy. And I've actually had to retrain how I relax and find different ways to do it, because sleep was always my go-to. And that's been really interesting, actually, personally, trying to find other ways to rest and other ways to relax. So if sleep isn't for you, if that isn't what gives you rest, then it's okay to find other things. You don't have to do what everyone else is saying. Right, we're going to finish up with Heather Wright, who is my lovely coaching buddy. She did the coaching course just before I did, so I was her guinea pig, and she's lovely. She's really brilliant. She does a lot of nature coaching, and if you're in Wokingham or locally, she is now running the Wokingham workshops solo, so I would highly recommend those. Right, let's get into Heather's one.
Hi, I'm Heather of Heather Wright Coaching, and I do outdoors and nature-inspired career and leadership coaching. The biggest thing I do to support my mental health is getting out on my bike regularly, especially with my local ladies club who ride every Friday morning. It's brilliant for the exercise, the fresh air, the social element, the coffee, and of course the cake.
It's interesting that none of the things mentioned in this are bubble baths or pampering or, these kind of cliche self-care things. The very basic level of all of these is connection, time away from work to give your brain space, meditation, movement. That's the kind of common theme here, and setting boundaries as well, knowing what works for you, knowing what protects your self-care. And sometimes that is simple things like turning off your social media or editing your feeds so you're not seeing things that constantly trigger you, and also working out what triggers you, what makes you feel anxious, what may lead to some depression. And it's not always, depression in particular doesn't always make sense, it's not always logical, and if you are dealing with it, I really hope that you're able to have someone to talk to, whether that is a doctor, a friend. If you don't, do come join us in the Freelance Lifestyle. You can do anonymous posts in there if you want in the Facebook group, or drop me a message and I might be able to find someone that will be able to support you, even if you just need somebody else to help you or show you in the right direction. So I hope there was something you could take away from that. I'd love to know if you have any additional suggestions. Do come over into the Facebook group. I think I might do a thread actually, for people to share their top tips. And if you enjoy this podcast, I never remember to say this, but if you enjoy this podcast, I really would appreciate you giving it a quick review on iTunes, or on Spotify you can actually give like a little 5 stars or a review. So that would be amazing. But my hope for you really for the rest of Mental Health Month is to work out a way to support your mental health and prioritize supporting your mental health, because you are your business's biggest priority. You are its biggest asset, and it's so important that you look after yourself. Right, have a lovely week, everybody. I'll be back next week. Actually, I'm thinking I might do a little... next week is Halloween, so actually, at the time of recording, it's not. But my next podcast is probably going to come out on the 31st of October, and I'm going to do something on how to treat your clients, not trick them. We're not going to go into tricks. No manipulation around here, guys. It's going to be about how to treat them, so how to give added value, how to make them feel really valued. Yeah, and that's going to be the next topic. If you've got any questions, do let me know. Details in the bio below.